here on the Evolution Exposed, the science they don't teach you here at the university. And today's topic is going to be, what do fossils say about evolution? Nothing. Rocks don't talk, okay? So anyways, but Dave and Mary Jo did a wonderful job last night. We covered biological proofs of evolution fail. And that's posted online, so people can still look at that video if they missed it on our YouTube page, and you just go to Maranatha MNSU. I've known Dave and Mary Jo for probably 36 years, or not 36, but at least 30 years probably, and close to 30, and very dear friends of ours, but what's unique about them is I call them the dynamic duels because Dave is a geologist and his wife is a biologist, and they're married. You can't really get a better combination than that. So they were both former evolutionists, completely trained in evolution. And as they put it, they evolved into creationists. So they didn't start with a supernatural assumption. They started with a naturalist assumption. Anyways, and so now for over 40 years, they've been doing these types of presentations to help young people and older people and middle-aged people understand they can trust the biblical account of creation, that true science actually supports the biblical account. And anyways, we love bringing them out here because even in their 70s, they still have a lot of life, and they take material that can be somewhat boring and make it alive for people and keep their interest. And we really appreciate that. And I'm just a pastor. I'm not the scientist per se, but we definitely believe that there's no accidents, that people are not accidents. And without there being a creator God, there's really no reason for hope. And without there being a God and a life after and a heaven, a place of paradise, a future ahead that's good. It's just eat, drink, and marry, for tomorrow we die. And so we don't believe in accidents. We don't believe you came from monkeys. We believe you were fearfully and wonderfully made in the image of God. And we hope that you enjoy this presentation today. And if you have any questions, just save them. You can do them online if you want to ask a question. I think we had some questions online last night, and then just save those questions, and Dave's going to talk for about an hour, maybe less.
Maybe less.
Maybe less. And
miracles do happen.
And then Mary Jo, his bride here, will also be involved in the Q&A time, and so you can ask her questions as well. And you can even ask questions that don't pertain necessarily to the presentation today if you missed yesterday or you're not going to make it Thursday, where those questions might be hit. So without any more interruptions, we're going to just turn it over to Dave here, and he's going to begin his presentation. So let's give him a warm welcome.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. And we just pray there are a lot of people that are going to be able to see this when it comes out on the video. Okay, there's a lot of people like to do it. We had people all the way from Arizona last night. So anyhow, no, rocks don't talk, neither do fossils, but we talk for them, right? And we come up with ideas about what this thing looked like when it lived, and sometimes we may be having sketchy information, sometimes a little bit more. But what I do think about the fossil record is that it does not support Darwinian evolution. Okay, there's the bottom line right there. Okay, now we can all go home. All right. No, we do have a free publication, Think and Believe. You can get on discovercreation.org and subscribe, and you can be getting a notification anytime something new comes out, okay? But most of us are taught in school, I wager, unless you went to a homeschool, possibly. But most of us are taught in school, movies, TV, especially the museums, that evolution takes a great big bite out of the biblical record and says you can't trust the Bible. We hear that so often. Now, this is me, that is me, a picture when I was about 10 years old, and I was teaching on a television program how the study of fossils dinosaurs, etc., proved evolution. Now, when I was a kid, I used to hunt a lot of dinosaurs, fossil dinosaurs, okay? Because we lived in that particular area that had a huge number of them. And so I was always convinced that evolution was a fact, even at that young age. And here I am teaching evolution on a television program, Grand Junction, Colorado, because that's all I had ever been taught. I had never heard about a creation. It wasn't until my third year of teaching on the college level that suddenly Mary Jo found a little book for 5 cents in a secondhand bookstore. It said, Evolution, the Fossils Say No. I looked at that cover and I almost threw it away. Okay, what do you mean the fossils say no to evolution? Everybody knows the fossils prove evolution. The miracle is I read the book. Mary Jo read the book from her basis in biology, mine in geology and paleontology. And you might say after a while, we just had to give up our beliefs in evolution. And it was a belief. I was understanding I was in a philosophical battle. That was the book that Mary Jo found for 5 cents in a secondhand bookstore. And that changed our lives around. We decided we needed to do our own research rather than depending upon what all these professors have been telling us and high school teachers, etc., for all those years. So we ended up doing our own research. The more we researched, the more we realized that guy wasn't crazy. He had some good points. We better start doing even more research, and we did it. When we were doing the research, we found out evolution isn't science. It's not science. It is a philosophy. Posing as science, it's a pillar of what's called naturalism. It's a worldview, okay? And that pillar of naturalism says this. Of naturalism, everything in the universe, including you, can be explained by only natural processes without a God. So it goes all the way to the Big Bang, the supposedly accidental formation of life, and then that life eventually changing into you. The old idea of goo turning into you by way of zoo, okay? That's the evolutionary model, and that's all naturalism. See, I was taught that, and many students are too, and they're chained to the idea of naturalism. Said, don't you dare think out of this box, okay? And you've got to be a good, if you've got to be a belief in naturalism and evolution if you want to be a good scientist. I bought into that for a long time, even when I was teaching at the college level, okay? So, but anyhow, this being chained, if you know me, I don't like being told what to think. Okay? Now, we're going to talk about things. I don't expect you're going to just believe it because I say it. I'm hoping you'll go back and do your own research too, just like we did. All right? So, but I'm going to open up some new doors for you to look in and explore. Okay? But naturalism is a belief system. Dr. Scott Todd says, even if all the data point to an intelligent designer, such an hypothesis is excluded from science because it is not naturalistic. You understand? He just put you in a box. And he defined science as naturalism. That new definition for science has come about since about the 80s, okay, 1980s. Before then, it was seeking knowledge. And so anyhow, you know, we're going to look at the fossil record now. Darwin published his book in 1859, okay? In 1859, the book title On the Origin of Species, The Preservation of Favored Races. Sounds a little sketchy right there, right? Anyhow, But when he talked about fossils, was he wrong? Well, you know what? He was right about some things about the fossil record. You know what he was right about? He says geology assuredly does not reveal any such finely graduated organic change, and this perhaps is the most obvious and greatest objection which can be urged against my theory. He says the explanation lies, as I believe, in the extreme imperfection of the geologic record. What he was saying is, keep digging, you should find the links. If you don't, you can confidently reject my theory. Okay, he was right in this thing. But what he was wrong is later generations haven't found them. Okay, we're going to look at it. This is Niles Eldredge. He says 120 years of paleontological research later, it has become abundantly clear that the fossil record will not confirm this part of Darwin's predictions, nor is the problem a miserably poor record. The fossil record simply shows that this prediction is wrong. Oh my. All right, well, that's what they're saying. Okay, I'll give you 3 reasons why the fossil record supports the biblical creation fall model and offers devastating evidence against Darwinian evolution. First of all, what would evolution predict if it was true? You should look in the rock layers as represented by this diagram, and you should see a record of very constant change from very, very simple life forms down here to more and more complex forms as time goes on, leaving a huge number of links that you could identify. Half this, half that, 3/4 this, 3/4, half, a quarter of that. You should see that. And this life form down here should be very simple. Let's tackle that one first. You notice those things? Those are trilobites, that little bug right there, okay? That's a trilobite. And it looks simple until you look at the head of the trilobite, and what do you find out? It had extremely complex vision. Here it has hundreds of lenses, likely focusing an image to one point. Wow, that's complex, isn't it? Now they found some more eyes, not of trilobites, but of another creature, and they scratch their head. They're not sure what kind of creature it was. Why? Because it had over 3,000 lenses in an eye, and they found thousands of these things. And they say, it looks like the eye from a recently swatted fly. It's found way down there with those trilobites. What is it? It looks like a fly. Maybe it was a fly. No, it can't be a fly. Why? Because flies supposedly have not evolved for another 300 million years. Okay, so that's a problem. The insects aren't around yet, according to the theory of evolution. All right, I like what they said, though. Their discovery reveals that some of the earliest animals possess very powerful vision. Similar eyes are found in many living insects, such as robber flies. Why not? If it's identical to a robber fly, I'd say let's call it a robber fly, and then maybe question evolutionary perspectives, okay? All right, so according to this, these eyes are found down here. These insects should not have evolved until up there. So that's a big gap in time, isn't it? Huge. All right, now they found way down in the Cambrian, they found an arthropod, but guess what? They were able to do a brain scan on the thing. Guess what? It looked just like the brain of the same arthropod that lives today. Okay? Extreme complexity way down there. At the Denver Museum in Colorado, there's an exhibit they call the Cambrian Explosion. Okay, and there they say 545 million, notice I put an extra word in there, evolutionary years ago. Evolution needs time. If you believe in creation and God is a creator and he's powerful, he doesn't need that kind of time, does he? All right, so, but he said 545 million years ago, there was an explosion of life and all the different body shapes and plans, get this word they had used, popped into existence. That doesn't sound like evolution, does it? Nah, not at all. If you follow the creation, God created everything, fall, flood, yeah. We have a different way of explaining those rock layers, by the way. Okay, very important to understand. All right, so what are we seeing? Complexity everywhere. What about this idea of stasis? That means kind of staying put. It means not the kind of change that evolution requires. Okay, it's staying put. For instance, pick up that shell today on the beach, but the fossil counterpart looks identical to it. All right, no change. Sassafras leaves are still sassafras, aren't they? Not even the vein structure has changed, and supposedly over millions of years. That doesn't work. What's that called? And you can still recognize pine cones, and they've been around for 140 million years, right? They're pine cones, aren't they? That's a mite that was found in amber. We have the same bug today. Okay, same bug. Oh, okay. They just found recently, this is in August this year, what is this thing? That is a partial wing of a dragonfly. Okay, and they say, oh, it's a 75 million year old dragonfly found up in Canada, by the way, and but it's identical to some of the dragonfly wings we have today. It's identical to it. Now, we knew dragonflies were in the fossil record. This is out of the dinosaur rocks, the Jurassic, over 100 million years, and yet perfectly preserved dragonflies, way back when. The other one was unique in its location in California. Okay. Oh, they also found butterfly evidence now. Aha. What did they say? 236 million year old poop fossil. They found it in dung, okay, and petrified. Reveals a hidden treasure, the oldest evidence of butterflies. Oh, wow. So you can go to Discover magazine and see that there. Do different animals eat butterflies? Some do, don't they? Do you realize what the favorite food at a certain time of the year is for grizzly bears? Moths. They have a migration system that goes right through Yellowstone, okay? And the migration of the moths, they congregate underneath the rocks. Sometimes you can see these grizzly bears walking along, sniffing. They have extremely powerful smell. All of a sudden, they flip over a rock. And one grizzly bear has been noted. In fact, they've been doing a lot of study on it. 30 to 60,000 moths per day, part of their diet. That's a lot. They're putting up fat for winter hibernation. Okay, so now they're finding butterflies. The problem that this puts for evolution, it is 100 million years before the insect should have evolved. You understand? And then what are they finding? Nice little definitive evidence if those are butterfly wings. Okay? Definitive. Tiny scales. Oh, now they found another tree frog, supposedly 55 million evolutionary years ago. But it's just basically, it's a tree frog. We have them today. It's not that particular guy, but I like him. Tree frogs are tree frogs. Okay? That's interesting. Spiders are spiders, by the way. This is a trapdoor spider that's been found. Interesting thing about it, look at they even showed what the eyes look like because it is identical to the same spider we have today. And interesting, some of these are very old. Look at these reflective eyes, just like some of today's reflective eyes on spiders. Amazing, isn't it? Oh, they found a golden orb spider, unchanged, supposedly for 165 million years, evolutionary years, of course. These are noted for their amazing webs, okay? And by the way, talking about webs, they have now found, here are the spiders found up into here. Now they found spider webs down here. That's below in the fossil record. But when did the insects evolve? Supposedly up here. What do you think these spider webs were trying to catch? Probably insects. Now we find butterflies in here, don't we? We find butterflies. We find, even in the Cambrian, we find evidence of insects that are usually ignored. By the way, when you do study fossil insects, it's like studying fossil or insects that are alive today. That's what most people studying this field say. All right, here's the Denver Museum. I've made this so you can read it better. The first sharks evolved 450 million evolutionary years ago. But look what they say. Sharks have changed very little over the years. Don't you think they should change over millions and millions and millions of years? No, they're staying put. There they are. They have found now a living shark, supposedly unchanged over its entire evolutionary history of 450 million years. The same one, still swim. Well, it died a few days later, but anyhow, but they found it. Found a vertebrate fish way down in the lower Cambrian, way down in the lower layer. This is a Metaspergina. It's a vertebrate. It had advanced eyes. It had blood vessels, gills, a digestive system, and muscular swimming. What does it sound like? A fish. In fact, we have the same type of fish living today in our oceans. Again, unchanged, but you're also seeing something about it. Extreme complexity way down deep in the fossil record. So you got two things. You've got the complexity, evolution shouldn't be there. And you've got now stasis, not the type of change that evolution would require, okay? The coelacanth was thought to have been extinct for 65 million years. And then they found out, wait a minute, the fishermen off the coast of Madagascar have been eating them for years, okay? They've been catching and eating them. Just a few days ago, there was actually a report about, for the first time, they actually were able to good video of the coelacanth. So they have that. I don't have any here to show you, but look it up. They just found it. But when they did take video, and they made a kind of a rough one, here's what they found. This thing that used to be called a protoleg wasn't a protoleg, okay? And so for unchanged for 420 million years, when these were supposedly crawling out of the ocean, changing into the amphibians, the reptiles, protoleg, very important, except for one thing. It looked pretty fishy when they actually were able to see it. This animation shows what that fin was used as a fin. It was not used as a leg. All right, very important. When you find a feather in the fossil record, you can tell it's a feather. You don't have to use your imagination, okay? And woodpeckers are woodpeckers in the fossil record. Now they've had over 1,400 fossil bats found. Not one is in between showing how it evolved. They're suddenly there. Bats have already been bats. The hummingbirds have always been hummingbirds. Okay? And because of the fossil they found, it's essentially a modern hummingbird. A fossil lizard was found in amber. That's at the time supposedly of dinosaur. No change whatsoever. And we know what he ate for dinner normally because we have the same species of lizards today. Okay? Same thing. So the idea of things staying put, yeah, that's what we see. What about the idea of distinct kinds? All right. You see all these textbook pictures when you're a kid showing how one kind eventually changes into another kind. And that really is good. Poor kid needs to have something to hang evolution on, right? But the problem is those links, these are missing links, are called missing links for a good reason. They're missing. You don't have those links. Yeah, you have that guy, you have this guy, but nothing in between. And yet the kid gets an idea that they have everything. Oh, no, they don't. We have good or great artwork is what it is. David Kitts is an evolutionist who was writing in the magazine called Evolution even back earlier. He knew something about it. He says evolution requires intermediate forms between species, but paleontology does not provide them. He's tearing his hair out. Why not? The problem is they keep digging, but they still don't have them. Okay? They still don't have them. Arrow White specializes in fish. He said there should be thousands of things leading up to a fish in the fossil record, but I can't find them. They're not there. He says, but whatever ideas authorities may have on the subject, the lungfishes, kind of like the coelacanth, lungfishes, like every other major group of fishes that I know, have their origins firmly based on nothing. Ooh, I have often thought how little I should like to have to prove organic evolution in a court of law. And I'm sure this was actually quoted some time ago. He would still not want to face a good lawyer in a court of law, okay? Because they haven't proceeded any further. Dr. Stephen Jay Gould, when he was back at Harvard University, said the extreme rarity of transitions in the fossil record persists as a trade secret of what? Paleontology. Don't tell anybody. Okay, so every one of the evolutionary predictions of the fossil record is a resounding no. You don't see it when you look in the fossil record. Okay? The lowest life forms are not simple. They're extremely complex. They don't have the link showing how one thing changes into something else. And a constant change? No, things are staying put, okay? Staying put, stasis. Now, what we do see when we look at the fossil record, we see dog kind, right? Oh, we see horses, we see different frogs, but it's only variation within a specific kind. Mary Jo talked about that last night. What she saw, variation, yes. Evolution, no. Not the type of evolution that you can see goo turning you into you by way of the zoo. You know, that's what it says in Genesis chapter 1, 10 times. God created things after their own kind, not one kind changing into another kind. Oh, it's pretty obvious, isn't it? All right, so every one of that, the prediction that maybe the creationists might make, or somebody who's using the Bible there too, complexity, yeah, everywhere, because God created it to work together in an ecosystem. Things, not stasis, not change. Yeah, he created things after their own kind. So that's what we'd expect to see. But you might say, wait a minute, I've seen pictures showing evolution. You saw pictures. Okay? You saw great artwork. All right? So that is true. That's what you saw. Like, for instance, the horse series. You saw great artwork most of the time. You saw how Eohippus, the dawn horse, would eventually evolve into modern present-day horse. But look how good the artist paints it to help draw the younger audience in, okay? A lot of spots, fewer spots, no spots. What do we know about spots on a fossil? All you have is a bunch of dry bones, right? You can't tell a thing. But they don't explain how you go from a browsing tooth to a grazing tooth without leaving the necessary transitions. The problem with the foot structure, they've been trying to solve that for a long time. The number of pair of ribs go back and forth without any pattern whatsoever. And you would expect the bones of present-day horse to be found only on the top layers, his supposed great-great-granddaddies or ancestors, way down here. But in the John Day country in Oregon, also now in South America, they have found the bones of present-day horses in rock layers below his supposed ancestors. You can't be your own grandfather. But that is a major problem for it. And by the way, this little guy here, they call a horse Eohippus. It's actually, the scientific name is Hyracotherium, which we have living hyraxes today. Okay? It's about the size of a rabbit. I don't think Jonathan wants to put a saddle on this beast and try to get any more, would you? No, it won't work. Okay, this is out of a textbook. Again, what I'm trying to show you right now is why so many young people, maybe even viewing this today, may have gotten trapped into evolution. It wasn't because of the evidence, likely. It was because of what the artist had done with the evidence. That's very much an important thing to realize. Great artwork convinces young people of evolution, not the evidence. Okay? For instance, when you see great artwork like this, lobe-finned fish crawling out of the ocean on its proto-legs, they show you that picture. You say, great artwork. What's the evidence, huh? That's a textbook picture, by the way. What is the evidence? Turns out nothing was found between those two creatures at the time this book was written. But look what the topic on the top of the page says. Missing links show how the process of evolution, of course, took place. What should a third grader have asked? They don't usually think about it. How can something missing show anything? Right? They're missing links. They have nothing in between. Well, since that time, they've had about 7 or 8 supposed candidates for the transition from fish to amphibian. Everyone fizzled, including the latest, which was Tiktaalik. Tiktaalik was found, used in a debate against Ken Ham, by the way, and Ken unfortunately didn't jump on it. He could have easily. But it says this is the missing link, showing how this tetrapod, or this thing, walked out of the ocean on those proto-legs. All right? Now, here's what the caption normally reads. Thick wrist bones. Hold it. They found thin bones. Why call them wrist bones? Unless they're trying to make a point and trying to get you to believe in evolution. Okay? No, they're fin bones, okay? And then this, even Bill Nye, the science guy, should never have used this in his debate against Ken Ham. You know why? Because they had already found another layer in Poland of a trackway, a 4-footed creature walking, crisscrossing back and forth across the mud on 4 legs. And this layer is supposedly 20 million years older than the bones where the bones of Tiktaalik were found. Okay? You can't be your own grandmother again, can you? And then, so that all of a sudden was out. In fact, here's what Jennifer Clack, University of Cambridge, said. We thought we'd pinned down the origin of limb tetrapods for four-legged creatures. We have to rethink the whole thing. Okay, now it's interesting because now they found another fossil trackway. Here, come back here. Here it is right here. This is in May of this year. Earliest amniote tracks recalibrate the timeline of tetrapod evolution. What are they finding? Another trackway, even older. So back to the drawing board. Okay. So basically, what is that doing? Putting all of these things together as if they might have been created together, perhaps, instead of evolved. I think this is what's going on here. Okay, that's right out of Nature magazine right here. This is a creationist presentation of the same thing by Dr. Frank Sherwin, okay? But this is the article right there. You might even see this, how whales evolved from a dog-like creature. Have you seen anything like that before? Oh, yeah. Okay, well, let's pick it apart a little bit, okay? Let's pick it apart. Let's look the first guy up there on the line. Here he is. He's going to evolve into a humpback whale. Most kids, at least at this point, can say, that doesn't make any sense at all. I would agree, okay? I would certainly agree. But here's what the museum, it shows the creature, and a youngster in the museum should say, hey, great artwork, what's the evidence for that? Turns out all they had were two small pieces of a jaw, the dark color here, put together with white matrix, okay? That's all they had. They had no legs, no backbone, no tail. Not enough evidence to get that artwork, is there? But the artwork convinces people that evolution is true, not the actual evidence, okay? This is Pakicetus. Pakicetus, this was found on the front cover of Science magazine, April '83. And there you say, wow, great artwork. And say, what's the evidence for him? What is the evidence for that particular picture right there? Okay, well, here it is. It's got, and they show you the evidence. This is a different publication, not the Science magazine. It shows you what? The backbone, the one bone of the back of the skull, a couple of teeth, one small patch of jaw. Okay, that's all they found. They did not find any legs, no backbone, no tail. Now, is that enough evidence to get that great artwork and make the claim bone prove a whale walked? How can something without any legs prove anything walked, in other words? Okay, well, now they have a new picture of Pakicetus. Was the second one in the lineup. And here's what they think. Anybody smell a long-legged rat? I do. This is the 2004 model. So which is correct? The 1983 or the 2004 model? They still don't have enough evidence for it, regardless, okay? Go up the line. Ambulocetus, here we go. Wow, great artwork. Wait, we have the evidence here, right? Look at that, we have a whole skeleton. But you have to be careful when you go to a museum. When you take your kids to the museum, you need to point out two different colors. Okay, look for the two colors. This one doesn't give it to you. It makes it look like the whole thing was found, doesn't it? They didn't find that whole skeleton. If they did, maybe they could make a claim on that artwork, couldn't they? But they don't. All right, well, look at the skull of Ambulocetus. This is the one that they used in their museum exhibit. But it's also casts of this very thing that they have sent to public schools, universities, around the world. This is the cast. They make it look like they found the whole thing, right? And I think it was pretty deceptive, all right? Because they didn't find the whole thing. This is actually a videotape of the guy that was actually part of it, Hans Theissen. He actually admits online that they didn't find all of the skeleton, okay? They didn't find the whole skull. In fact, all they found were the parts that are kind of buff in color here. The rest that are kind of grayish or aluminum colored, never found. Okay? They didn't find that. It was added for your viewing enjoyment. The piece at the end of the arrow is a blowhole. That piece that would have had a blowhole was entirely missing, gone. That would be the identifying feature that it might have been a whale, or at least on its way to become one. Okay? So remember, they didn't have the whole skeleton. Here's all they found. So even when you go to the museum, you may be led astray thinking they found the entire skeletons. Okay? Be careful there. Let's go back up, go down the chart a little further. The next one, this is Rhodocetus. It was the first creature with legs changing into flippers and a tail developing into a whale's tail. Okay. Carl Werner calls this a whale of a tail. He really does. But anyhow, okay, what did they find? First of all, they found no tail. They found nothing leading the tail. They didn't find any of the flippers. Not enough evidence for what they were just claiming, right? Then they don't have it. And yet that's in the lineup up to a whale. Okay, let's see. Next, according to Dr. Carl Werner, who was talking about a whale of a tail, he says all 8 characteristics, that gingerish, that's the one that worked with Thwaissen, gingerish and Thwaissen, all 8 characteristics reported as whale features are disturbingly non-whale features. And Dr. Carl Werner says that. Now Dr. Don Batten also picked it up on his website, Whale Evolution Fraud, okay, is what it is. One of the things that caused people to think that maybe whales evolved from land animals, these little bones right here in that red circle. And they say those are leftover bones from legs. They're no longer needed. First of all, that's a huge assumption, isn't it? Other researchers finally, after years and years later, said, I wonder what those bones could be for. Turned out they were very important for muscle attachment and also for in the reproductive cycle of the whale, okay? And so this article came out not from a creation group, University of Southern California news release. Researchers turn a long-accepted evolutionary assumption on its head. They admit it. It was actually very important in sexual reproduction. All right. How many have heard dinosaurs evolved into birds? We're not going to talk much about it, but I want you to know that their prize one that they use turned out to be a fraud. I'll be talking more about that tonight at the campus house, okay? Very important. I'll be talking about many of the frauds from supposedly dinosaur to bird evolution. Okay, this was a fraud. They put together, looked like maybe 4 or 5 different skeletons to make it look like a bird that's evolving from a dinosaur. And then this particular magazine of National Geographic, yep, I'm going to hurry up. Yeah, I do. closed, not showing up on mine. I'll try. Oh, I know why that is the problem. No, exactly. Both of these are USB-C cables. Mm-hmm. All righty, well. What number is this? Escape. And slideshow from current slide. Okay, we're back on track. Okay. All right, now, National Geographic gave you a nice chart of how a small theropod dinosaur was going to evolve into birds, right? Sounds really good. Gave great artwork too to show you that. And they said, look at all those feathers. No, most of them were not feathers. But when you do find feathers in dinosaur layers, they're probably bird feathers. Okay? That's what they're finding out. But they have reclassified, this is the sad part, they have reclassified birds and put them in the dinosaur classification. Okay? A category in the dinosaur classification. So when they say they found a feather, oh, it could be a bird, but they couldn't call it dinosaur feather because it's under the dinosaur classification. Okay, we're not going to talk about it. We'll do that later. But anyhow, the question is, can you imagine T-Rex evolving into hummingbirds or any theropod? No way. And the bottom line, did dinosaurs evolve into birds? And the answer is no, and not at all. And in fact, here is a theropod dinosaur, but it has 3 birds in its stomach. They weren't evolving into birds, they were eating them. Okay? Very important to understand that. All right, so did you know fossils of modern birds, sandpipers, loons, ducks, flamingos, cormorants, albatross, parrots, owls, penguins, robins, where are they found? In the very same layers you find dinosaurs. Shouldn't be there, and you won't find a museum that shows that. But that is actually what the data shows. They're all found in there. One big issue for dinosaur to bird evolution, the big issue is the soft tissue they're finding. They found red blood cells now. They've been able to find some DNA strands and then soft tissue that are still wiggly and petrified dinosaur bone that's supposedly 140 million years old. Problem with that. How do you handle that? Okay, I'll talk more about that this evening. Okay, so now they found other fossils. Now this is supposedly over 500 million years old. A fossil that was found in 2019, it still had soft tissue in it. How is that possible? It makes me doubt those millions of years. I hope it does you too. Okay? There's no way it could happen that way. And many, many other things, soft tissue. We're going to talk about it tonight as well. Birds are not dinosaurs. Okay? I don't care what people are trying to say, that's not the case. And we're going to show you again the dinosaur and dragon connection. And did people actually see these things? These things called mythological creatures called dragons may have been dinosaurs. That's what a lot of evidence is pointing to right now. All right, in the next couple minutes, let's go ahead and dismiss human evolution. When you look at National Geographic, go to their museum, what do you see? Great artwork. Great artwork. When you see a textbook and you see, oh, here's your lineup, here's how you evolved. Well, that's great artwork, isn't it? Great artwork. And you look at what's the evidence for that guy right there? you would expect the whole skeleton. A young kid would look at and expect the whole skeleton, wouldn't they? Turns out, when you look at that guy, here's all that was found. Just the skull cap, nothing else. Not enough evidence, is it? Not enough evidence. And especially telling him he's using tools, okay? Artwork convinces young people that evolution is true. This was out of a newspaper in 1922. Wow, great artwork. What's the evidence? Turned out all they had at that time was one tooth, the whole tooth, but nothing but the tooth. Okay? And from that, they figured out what he ate, who his friends were, camels in the background, etc. Later, they found out they made a huge mistake. That tooth did not belong to a Nebraska man, but it belonged to Nebraska pig. Okay? And because pigs' teeth are somewhat similar to a human's teeth, by the way. Okay? Piltdown Man was a deliberate hoax. Somebody took a jaw of an ape, skull of a modern man, colored everything nicely, hid it for a scientist to find, and sure enough, they found it. And here's what they thought Piltdown Man looked like. But it was nothing but a hoax. It was a hoax, okay? But it took them 30 years to determine it was a hoax. So they took it out of the textbooks then, right? Wrong. For another 50 years, it was still in textbooks, okay? And in museum exhibits, convincing people that evolution is true. This is out of a second grade book. This is Robopithecus. Woohoo! Great artwork. What's the evidence for him? 2 small shreds of jaw is all they had. Hardly enough to get him, but definitely not enough to get his family. But they showed it that way too. See, young people look at these pictures and they are drawn into believing evolution as a result of it. This was Dr. Johansson's Lucy. Wow, look at that. No hands, no feet, no head. But why, when you go to the museum exhibit, do you have hands, feet, head, etc., showing you in a human pose what he would look like, right? Oh, again, artwork is what convinces people of evolution. It turns out that notice there's no knee joint here. And he said, Dr. Johansson said, yeah, this knee joint shows that Lucy walked upright. But he found the new knee joint miles away from the rest of things, okay? So it was different. French Science Journal says that Australopithecine, Lucy, and friends should be removed from our family tree, okay? So they don't illustrate what you're supposed to. So the next thing you're going to see in textbook is all of this type of a skull, and here's all these things we can garner from that. Find out if it's a composite, like that one right there. Tim White made this reconstruction of Afarensis skull, that's Lucy and friends, using parts of not one, not two, several individuals. It's a composite. And wow. Then there's a Time magazine talks about a toe bone that they're associating with some fragments of a skull and said this toe bone proves the creature walked on 2 legs, according to the scientists. Turns out the toe bone wasn't found with the skull. You know where it was found? Here it is, 10 miles away. Assumed to be the same species, so trying to get a composite picture of what the creature looked like. There's lots of room for error when you see that. The year 2009 was very important. It would have been the year of Darwin's 200th birthday if he was still alive, and it would have been the 150th year of the anniversary of the publication of his book. So they had all kinds of celebrations going on. Somebody brought in a fossil and said, we've got the fossil link to give good old Charles Darwin a good birthday present. They never let one of the experts look at it. They had museum unveilings. They had all kinds of things like that going on, textbook supplements. They said this is going to be in textbooks for 100 years. My mind said, why only 100 years if it's right? Okay. They think that's how long it's going to take it. Find it's not working. No, turned out it lasted for about 5 months. Experts said, this is nothing but a lemur. We have them living today. It's a lemur fossil. And that, boom, dropped out of the site. Artie was another one. That was for his anniversary of his book. Turns out they show a whole skeleton, like this one right here, the whole skeleton. They show you that in the pictures, but they never found a whole skeleton. In fact, the worker said, it looks like they're working with powder. Trying to put together powder, not bones. And even then, when they showed the long arms of Artie, I said, looks like a knuckle-walking ape. Okay? That's what you would expect it to be. But it turns out, I think that one's easy enough to dismiss entirely. So next time you see a new face on the block, you find out, don't buy into it right away. Kind of wait and see. Maybe 1 year, 2 years. This one in 5 years, guess what happened? They found too many things that indicated to them, like broken bones in the same spot, getting marrow out. Okay, that's what they're doing. Crushed skull, they're eating brains, etc. This guy was the hunted, not the hunter. Okay? He was the hunted. Okay. More books available as well. Fossil Record, you can order those from AOI. Okay, next time you see Uncle Harry, you ask the question, what's the evidence for the great artwork? Are these composites? Every one of them are, by the way. And do they really know what he looked like from that amount of evidence? Those are very important questions we should ask. Make sure kids know to ask, okay? What do the fossils indicate? We see complexity everywhere. Yeah. We see things kind of staying put. We see these distinct groups, yes. But when we look at the fossil record, we see perfect preservation of some detailed things. What else do we see here? We see one fish eating his lunch when both of them got trapped. We see evidence of catastrophe in the fossil record, which fits the fall and the flood. That's going to be the topic of Thursday evening's presentation. Okay? Thursday evenings. All of that will fit the creation, the fall, and the flood. That's what the fossils say. If we listen carefully. All right. Anyhow, tomorrow night, geology. Who's the hero of the plot? Okay? And you're going to see the geologic, archaeologic, as well as evidence of the flood was real, as well as biblical evidence of it as well. Okay? Questions?
Okay.
There's our website. Thank you very much.
Now we have our Q&A time. Thank you, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
So just for those of you potentially online, we will be tonight at 7 p.m. roughly, we will be having another presentation at the Maranatha Christian Fellowship worship meeting. And I think we'll have a little bit worship on the front end, and then we'll have about an hour worth of sharing after that. So probably about 7:30 will be
on the live stream.
Right, on the
Okay.
live stream.
Mm-hmm.
And then don't forget, tomorrow night will be our last presentation, which is geology. Who's the hero of the plot? And that will be looking at the worldwide flood and the evidence for that.
Yep.
And relating that to the biblical account of Noah's flood, I'm assuming.
That's exactly right.
And so anyway, so we're excited to have Dave and Mary Jo
Thank you.
here for the 2 more presentations. And so does anybody got any questions?
have a bit of a question.
Okay.
So, there's many different creation narratives across many different cultures.
Yeah.
Plus, there's the naturalist perspective, and each of them, like, there's each faith. Like a lot of different faiths will proclaim that this is the definitive, like, creation. And, like,
Mhm.
it could be like, even within Christianity, there's like some sects that will accept, like, well, maybe creation was the Big Bang and everything afterwards was physics. And then there's other section of Christianity, like, you know, it was created 10,000, 100,000 years ago, and then creation happened. And then there's like Native American ones where they might not even involve any sort of creation at all, and things are always here. Or there's a variety of different creation myths or creation stories.
Mhm.
How is there any way that any of those could be better supported more than others, or are they all kind of? It depends on which one you have faith
Okay.
in.
I have an answer for it, but Mary Jo has a mic there too now. I'm going to have her answer that. I give her all the hard ones to answer. Mhm.
That's not a hard one, though.
That's not a hard one today.
The biblical account is the most detailed, and you will see that if you come to the flood lecture, because there's all kinds of flood legends. Yes, and they all involve water, and they all involve a boat, and most of them involve animals and so on. But the biblical account is very precise. And what I think happened is this is a historical remembrance of a real historical event that was recorded in the book of Genesis. And as people spread out around the world, taking with them their ideas, their cultural remembrance of a flood or something like that, or a creation or whatever, that the stories, lost some of the specificity and the details. And so, yes, we can see some commonalities, but to me, that all points back to the one real event. And we believe the biblical account is the one that gives the most, the most detail and most specificity about that account. So, yeah, some of them are more closely related to the biblical account. Others are pretty far-fetched, But it's just as different groupings went different places around the world.
Some of them you
that-
can probably dismiss pretty much out of hand. Okay. Like the earth is suspended on the backs of two turtles.
I've heard that. Yeah.
That's not biblical, by the way.
We had a student at one of the universities, and he was kind of cocky, and he was going, well,
He's an atheist.
I need to have evidence, and I'm an atheist. And
Oh,
he said he didn't believe in Genesis. We said, why not? And he says, well, because Genesis teaches that the earth is suspended on the backs of two turtles. And in the audience were other atheists who were going, no, it doesn't. I just said, hey, I've read that numerous times. I haven't seen it in there. Could you find it for me and bring it the next night? Of course, he didn't. But,
no.
People are not informed. And then they think, well, look at all these similarities. Or what about this account or that account? And when you really start looking into it, the biblical account shows a lot more detail and specificity.
Like I'll say, like, I'm pretty deep into like the naturalist point of view. I still think everything is physics. I'll go as far to say, like, I believe the Big Bang. That's kind of ethereal because we don't really know what happened before the Big Bang. So
That's
I'll lie that creation started there.
So you're defecting from that side somewhat.
I still believe in naturalism, but
Sure.
you bring like a couple of good points on like how does fossil reconstruction really work?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
So like, it does make me think about like how did they actually come to those conclusions?
Sure.
What sort of work goes into that? Is it valid? Is it not valid?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that is kind of intriguing. It does make me think a little bit, but I'll still have to do some more reading on my own. I'll make sure to
Sure.
do like accounts favoring the Christian side, but accounts also favoring, what do most secular scientists think versus the other perspective, and kind of weigh,
Mhm.
what's it looking like?
If you weigh the number of scientists saying this versus the number of science saying that, majority isn't always right. You're right, as you know from history, majority has been wrong plenty of times. So it's very important to understand that. Um, but like Mary Jo says, find out which one of these accounts fit the facts and are most detailed. So when you have one that starts out, well, once upon a time in a far distant land, is probably mythology, but that's not the way the flood starts. It starts in the 600th year of Noah's life in the first month of second. On the second month, on the 17th day of the month, this is when this happened. And then it gives a specific day, month, and day of all these other events. You find out somebody's writing this down, probably on Noah's ship log, probably Noah himself. He's writing down exactly what occurred while he's on that boat. And then other cultures now pick up on the original writings, and then it's also told in their cultures after the flood, after the dispersion, and then it's like a game of phone. Okay, and pretty soon, a lot of people have very different accounts. By the way, there are 300 flood accounts from just North, South, and Central America alone. 300, and they all have that boat. They have water. Many of them have animals going on board. There's a common thread with so many of these things that if you want to piece together the threads, you're going to be back to the biblical account.
Go back to the original story.
Right.
And that's usually the case if you
Yeah.
piece it together from enough sources. Mhm.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
How did you come to your position of naturalism, believing in naturalism?
Well, as we were talking earlier in my class, I've taken a lot of biology classes, which
Uh-huh.
I really love.
Yeah.
Good.
That and like I was always reading textbooks, reading papers every now and then on like evolutionary biology, molecular biology.
Mhm.
Even though my main thing is mechanical engineering, like I love to expose myself to as many viewpoints, like as much like fun factoids really.
Okay.
And, like that's sort of how my understanding came of it.
Yeah.
Understanding or at least belief of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So think about it a minute, though. In mechanical engineering, what does it take to design a working system?
Well, you need to know how the system works and know the properties of all the materials that you're working with exactly. Otherwise, the bridge will fail and things like that.
Yeah, it didn't
There you
just,
go.
It didn't just happen that the iron and the other molecules just sort of came together and you got a bridge.
Yeah.
And so in living things, when I look at things like a paramecium that you were telling me about, and the beauty of it and the complexity of it, when you start really looking into that and then using that analogy of what does it take to even get that one little paramecium, how many hundreds and hundreds of proteins are in there, and the complexity and the way in which they're organized together. Look at a cell and it's phenomenal. And so at that point, then the question is, could this have happened by chance and accident over millions and millions of years? And you couldn't get a bridge, even if you had millions of years. It takes
And
what?
all the pieces.
It takes human intelligence in that case, right?
Yeah.
And so as we look at the complexity of life systems, and the more we learn, the more it gets, the more amazing it gets.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the more that scientists discover about the operations within a cell or within the DNA and the way they all work together, it boggles my mind to think it could have happened by accidents and chance.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would really encourage you to think about where your view of naturalism came from. You said you read it in books, okay, but does it make sense to your intelligent brain? Obviously, you have an intelligent brain because you like this kind of stuff,
Yeah.
right? So I would just challenge you to think about it and see what are the chances even that you could get one cell by accident. And Dave's done some calculations on what even getting one protein.
You were in that program last night online, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
So
was some really small. I think
one chance in 10 times itself 260
like a
times.
tornado going through a junkyard.
That's for a cell.
that's for one cell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was for one protein.
Solomon, so you said through biology books, but when you were a little younger, if I might ask, just now we're getting more into family life.
Yeah.
But were you raised with a biblical or Christian upbringing, or?
We had a very brief stint. We had a loss of a family member, so like it was like a brief sort of religion, but that was probably more of a coping mechanism rather than.
Lutheran, Catholic?
I think my grandma is Catholic.
Okay.
I
Okay.
can't remember which denomination or whatever it's called. I don't know. I can't remember which one that we were
Right.
in, but that
But it was
kind of
more.
a-
You're little.
denominational church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, look, first, I'm really sorry about your family member.
Yeah.
That's not ever easy. It is kind of in those foxhole situations where life is revealed to be very fragile, whether it be your own or
Would you
a
like a chair?
family member. That's where you begin to think about the God question.
Yeah.
What's gonna happen when I die? Where am I gonna go? You know, that's when a lot of those things come up.
Mhm.
It's kind of interesting. A lot of people like say they can handle, smoking dope or drinking and things like that, but it's usually in the difficult times where you find out you can't handle a lot of things
Yeah.
in life. And that's when the imbalances and the abuses happen.
Right.
Depression and hopelessness comes in. And so, and that's why, like what I said in the beginning, if you have a naturalist viewpoint that everything happens through natural causes, you see, and if the atheist or the agnostic or the atheist kind of thinking and mentality that there is no God, even though they don't have all the evidence to make that factual statement, just like we can't make the factual statement that through science that God did it or happened through that goes, because you got to bend there to actually say that. And so, anyways, but what I find is that a lot of the hopelessness we see in life is directly related to that naturalist kind of thinking, because then there is no real meaning or purpose for life other than what you make up.
Mhm.
But the problem with that too is that if you have 1 million people, they all come up with a different meaning of life. There's no purpose. And especially if it's left up to man to decide right and wrong and what is good and what is bad. We've seen that go the wrong direction throughout history.
Many different directions.
Right. And that's where I find is amazing, because I'm born again and Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior, and that just means that God's Spirit and my spirit are one together. The Bible says this is the temple of the Holy Spirit. And so is that I don't find any moral standard out there that's consistent and cohesive that's greater than the Ten Commandments. You see, when you read the Ten Commandments, I mean, I will go as far as to say, if you can come up with a higher moral standard than the Ten Commandments, as well as what Jesus said are the two greatest commandments, I'll renounce my faith, throw out the Bible, and follow that. You just can't find it, you see. And so, anyways, But just to go a little bit deeper too on it is it says in Romans 1 that what God has done, it says that he's made evident in every man that he exists. And it also says that not only from within do we know that there's a God, you know, and that makes a lot of people agnostic. They believe there's a God, but they don't
Yeah.
know who he is. And then the other side of that is, it says that also by what we see, God's made it evident that he exists. But then it goes on to say but man will go on and worship the creation and not the creator. And it also talks about how men suppress the truth and unrighteousness and how they won't give glory to God. And so I take naturalism, not to downplay the intelligence of the different scientists, but I believe there's a deeper spiritual, you know, thing happening here behind the scenes that we don't see with science. And that is that you know, that there is a hatred of God and there's a blinding to keep man from seeing who this God is, okay? And naturalism is perfect for that, because if we're all just accidents, then it removes giving glory to God, man, and everything we see on the earth that has design. We can't deny it. I mean, I can point to that pen there. I mean, there's a pen maker, and that would seem like one of the simplest things. And so that's where everything, obviously, we believe is that everything points to a creator because of the complexity of design. I mean, David and Mary Jo know one cell in our body has enough information to fill a library with books. You see, and so, you know, going back to the whole, you know, 747 created through eternity, that's just where we're at. And so there's a lot of people that embrace naturalism too, because of just ignorance, or they don't know anything else, because they've been taught that systematically from almost day one in the public schools, you see. And then the other thing is, there are people, though, I know there's a God, but they teach naturalism because they don't want to give glory to God, or they don't want to acknowledge
Mhm.
the accountable. So anyways, I'm just throwing out some thoughts here for you as you're wrestling this through. And like Mary Jo, I see you have a very high intelligence level. But one thing that happens with our giftings lots of times is they can become our worst enemy too.
Yeah.
And so your gifting of ability to think can also, you can overthink things when it's actually very simple. Okay, and so I just want to say that respectfully. I think you think it, you know, and I think you know there's a God. You just don't know who he is, you know.
That's precisely it. Like I don't believe there's like nothing outside of the
Okay.
world. And like there's so many different religions though. Like how
Yeah.
can I possibly choose which one? Like that's exactly where you were saying.
Yeah.
But